Hi everybody. Today is February 15th, 2025, and I've been posting these videos as a form of therapy to recover from the trauma of watching my little brother Paul Kierans, 64, with Down syndrome, be locked up in his group home with no visitors by the British Columbia New Democratic Party government with David E.B., I call him David Evil, as the self-appointed premier of our province. Paul was locked up after I reported what I believe is a fraudulent and forged power of attorney the government created over Paul so they could give him the COVID-19 shot on February 6th of 2021. The government appointed my 82-year-old Catholic nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario as Paul's substitute decision maker and guardian. She's only met Paul face to face a few times over the course of his 64 years. She's never lived with him. She left home when he was born and joined a Catholic convent and has lived most of her life in another country. So the government appointed her his decision maker when my two sisters and I, close by in British Columbia, had been caring for Paul on weekends and holidays for the last 35 years. One sister died in 2016, and the other one moved to Vancouver Island in 2019. So the only visitor that Paul had left, his only family member, was me. And when the government found out that I reported them for the fraudulent and forged power of attorney to the RCMP, to the Burnaby RCMP, they terminated permanently his visits with me and isolated and confined him for 588 days. And then I believe they killed him. He had some kind of brain incident on April 13th of 2022. He had a wound on the side of his head that was oozing blood. When they finally let me visit him at Burnaby Hospital. And when the nun found out, she flew in from Ontario after waiting for him to die for a couple of days. When he didn't die, she flew in from Ontario and put herself in a room alone with him. And when she found out that I knew she was being that Ottawa had ordered the Burnaby RCMP to reopen the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. When she found out that I knew, the RCMP called me on April 21st, and Paul was dead by April 23rd. She ordered that Paul was struggling to recover. I don't know if he would have recovered. To me, he grabbed my hand and squeezed it when I said, "Paul, it's Kathleen." He wouldn't let go. He took a book from my hands. He grabbed a book from my hand and turned the pages perfectly. But when the nun found out that she was being investigated by the Burnaby RCMP, she ordered the doctor, who is being investigated by the College of Physicians and Surgeons and the coroner, she ordered the doctor to remove Paul's oxygen mask and to sedate him to death, I believe with hydromorphone, but some kind of opioid. And I had complained to everyone, to the social worker, to the charge nurse on the ward, that I believe they were over-sedating Paul. I grew up with him, so I probably know him better than anyone on earth. He's 2 years younger than me. He was 2 years younger than me. So I saw my brother murdered before my very eyes. After the nun found out that I knew she was being investigated by the RCMP, when I went to visit Paul, I walked into the room. She wouldn't look me in the eye, but she said through gritted teeth, "Say goodbye to Paul, he's dying." And she wouldn't let me near his head, where the wound was. And at that point, he looked dead to me. This was on about 6 o'clock on April 22nd. So Paul was dead within 24 hours of the nun finding out I knew she was being investigated. In her mind, I know how she thinks, there would be no need for an investigation into this fraudulent and forged power of attorney if Paul was dead. Anyways, so what's happened since that time is after I complained to the Burnaby RCMP, I asked them to treat Paul's death as a suspicious death, which I don't believe that they did. But she applied to have me declared a vexatious litigant. And the judge, Judith E. Hoffman, so what happened was they removed the judge that was hearing the case, who was a Jewish person, I believe, and they parachuted in a Catholic judge. And I explained to her that I could only sit in court for 2 hours per day. I had a heart attack in 2016, and I have what cardiologists refer to as a life-threatening cardiac condition. I am legally disabled, and I have lupus. I almost died from kidney failure in May of 2021. But I told the judge, I said, I'm only allowed to sit in court for 2 hours per day. I've got a medical certificate from my family doctor and my cardiologist. And then when the 2 hours were up, I stood up and I reminded her that I was only allowed to appear in court. I was defending myself against the two law firms, the Ottawa law firm and the Vancouver law firm retained by the Catholic Church for the nun. I estimate they've spent $1 million on her legal representation. She had this Ottawa lawyer who all he does is he represents pedophile priests across Canada. He just flies back and forth across Canada representing pedophile priests, and he does really well. He gets them off. Anyways, I stood up and I said, I'm not allowed to stay past 2 hours, and this judge, I use that term lightly, Judith Hoffman said to me, well, can't you just sit in the gallery? So I'm supposed to defend myself against the Catholic Church, the government of British Columbia, and she wants me to sit in the gallery. And I just left. I just walked out, and I have appealed her decisions. I've appealed her decisions to the Court of Appeal, and there's a hearing date set for June 24th and 25th. I don't know what the British Columbia Court of Appeal is going to do. I don't know. When you're up against the Catholic Church and the government of British Columbia, good luck. But I have enough faith in the justice system that I know I'm going to win. Hopefully my brother Paul Kierans will get some justice too, and the evil nun will, and the doctor who put my brother down right in front of me, who murdered my brother right in front of me. Even in Canada, you can't kill an incapable adult. They have to be mentally competent, and Paul he's never functioned above the level of a 15-month-old infant. So hopefully the evil nun and the doctor and the lawyer, I've filed a letter with the court saying that I believe the nun's Vancouver lawyer told the nun to withdraw Paul's oxygen mask and have him sedated to death after I found out that the Burnaby RCMP had been ordered to reopen the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. So I'm just preparing. There's like a ton of work that I have to do to prepare for this appeal on June 24th and 25th. June 24th is Saint Jean Baptiste Day in Quebec. So that's kind of like a national holiday in my mind. So that's it for now. I just noticed that the link to my GoFundMe account for this litigation, as I said, the Catholic Church, I estimate, has spent almost $1 million on the evil nun's representation. And I've raised $2,165, which I don't think is that bad. But my GoFundMe link is not working right now, so I have to get that corrected. And I hope that you consider contributing to our GoFundMe account. It cost me $680 just to file the notices of appeal. So today, the most important thing to remember is today is the anniversary, the 60th anniversary of the assent by Parliament of the new Canadian flag. When I was a little girl, we had what was called the Red Ensign, and Canada's fought in 2 world wars and punched above its weight, I'll say. At the end of World War II, Canada had a navy, the 4th largest navy in the world. And today is the 60th anniversary of our new maple leaf flag. And I remember as a little girl sitting in class in grade 3 and drawing the maple leaf flag over and over and over again. It's got 10 points, just like the 10 provinces. And I think of my dad, who worked underground in Sudbury. His mine, the Fruit Mine in Sudbury, Ontario, produced 40% of the nickel used in World War II by the Allies. And not just the Canadian Allies, all of the Allies, the United States, Britain, Russia. My dad's one little mine produced 40% of the nickel used in World War II. And then he was invited to design the underground structure for the Churchill Falls hydroelectric project in Labrador, which produces, I think, 5 terawatts or some incredible amount per day. It produces hydroelectric power, which is used by the eastern seaboard of North America. So if you woke up this morning in a warm house and had a hot cup of coffee on the eastern seaboard of North America, you achieved those things thanks to my dad's design of the Churchill Falls hydroelectric project, which was the size of the Empire State Building laid on its side, carved out of granite underground in Labrador, in the harshest conditions on earth that you could imagine. And in 1970, when my dad was he was one of the 2 or the top head engineers of the project, which at the time was the largest construction project in the world. One flight, all of the board of directors of the company that was working on the Churchill Falls project, which was called Brinco, the British company that developed the Churchill Falls hydroelectric project, and the plane that my dad was supposed to be on crashed into the side of a mountain on the ascent into Churchill Falls, Labrador. And the president, the vice president, everyone of Brinco was killed, except for my dad, because he had been delayed. Something had come up, and he couldn't make that flight. So 6 of the board members and the pilot and co-pilot were all killed developing the Churchill Falls hydroelectric project, which provides hydroelectric power to Quebec and to the eastern seaboard of the United States. But my dad kept on taking planes for the next 3 years until 1973, when the project was finished. My dad kept on getting on planes and flying to Churchill Falls every week. I never realized until now how heroic he was. So let's make Donald Trump again. Take care, everybody, and thank you for watching.